There, there it goes. There it goes. There it goes. Very nice. Welcome welcome once again to the newest edition of 3 In, 3 Out, the most unique Seahawks podcast in the multiverse. I'm your host, Clinton Bonner. Give me a follow out on Twitter. It's been a busy day at Clinton Bon. I am joined by, of course, the one, the only, the great Brandon Schultz, and follow him out on Twitter at Seahawkers Pod. Brandon, we got some catching up to do, Brandon. Last time we talked, it was a bit of a sob fest. We were crying in our Cheerios about the trade of Russ, the jettisoning of Bobby, and me, you, and Adam. We were going back and forth, kind of just feeling all the feels. But boy, oh boy, does the NFL turn the page quickly. And we're gonna dive into some of those Russ things and some of those Bobby things and some QB things today on 3 In, 3 Out. But I think we also have to kind of break some news for folks out there that maybe haven't seen it yet, or just share a little bit of, man, what a flurry of some free agency as well. So as you sit there in Montana, 2 hours in the past, 5:51 your time, how does it feel to get this news ushering in about our free agents that we're bringing back? It's kind of, I don't know how to feel about it. I feel good.
Well, wait, since you're in the future, is there anything that you need to break ahead of me? Because I know the Quandre Diggs news is out there. That's the big news of the day for Seahawks fans. I know that Will Dissly is coming back. Sidney Jones also signing a 1-year deal with the team.
Yeah,
I think Will and Quandre were the two long-term deals. And then, in your preamble there, Clinton, you mentioned that we were kind of, in our cups about Bobby, but I don't think we had gotten the Bobby news yet when I think we were just commiserating around the Russell Wilson news when we
wow.
this.
Wow. Okay. So we didn't even get to share the Bobby feelings just yet. Okay. Yeah. No, interesting. And so a couple things to finish there, which we will in a second. Talk about the long ones there, but then of course we got Al Woods, we got Thigh Arms.
How could I forget Al Woods?
And you still, just the other day, you still left the other one off there. Our future guard, maybe center, the beefy boy himself, the tender beefy boy, Phil Haynes. He's not officially back, but he's tendered. And with the designation, it's very, very like 99.9% that no one's going to give us a pick for Phil Haynes, right? So
we're not getting a 4th round pick for Phil.
Right, exactly. If you want to give us a 4th round pick for Phil Haynes, we could discuss. But Phil Haynes is back too. So very interesting free agency. To answer your question about the future, here's the thing: living in the future, 2 hours ahead of you on the East Coast, I'm not allowed to talk about the future timeline. It breaks things. We've all seen Loki, and we can't do these things. So we have a lot to shoulder on the East Coast.
Put some money down on the Nets tonight.
Probably a good idea. I had no idea how the Nets are doing. I haven't watched basketball since the Sonics left. So college basketball is about to get going. I'm a UConn guy. We got the 5 seed. So go Huskies. Go get another chip, hopefully. But man, we got some fun stuff to talk through. We just ran down, of course, again, the free agent flurry that happened today. Super interesting. Quick aside, besides the Seahawks moves, what do you think is maybe an under the radar or just a solid move you saw by a different team today? And then, what about like a move that's just really kind of head scratching in free agency? I'm sure you probably got one of those.
I feel like this news about Tom Brady coming back to the NFL is kind of flying under the radar. That's pretty big news for the Bucs.
Yeah. Very big news for the conference, big news for the Bucs. That's big news for where Watson might go. There's a butterfly, Tom Brady butterfly effect going on there. Big news for dudes like, the holy Gronkamole with Gronk. Like, is he coming back to the Tommy Taco stand for one more trip in Tampa? He probably will, right? So that's some definite, big news.
The biggest head scratcher though, Clinton, and I know that Seahawks fans will be on. Well, I think any NFL fan should have noticed this particular deal. But Christian Kirk, going from the Arizona Cardinals to the Jacksonville Jaguars for, I don't know what it's, epic proportions monetarily. I don't know. Gosh, I have no idea what the Jags are thinking about with that move.
They said it's not 21 million. It's actually 18.
That doesn't make it better.
I mean, it's in math, it makes it a smidgen better, but
We'll get Jamison Crowder,
oh
free
my
agent
gosh.
from the Jets for 4.
Hey, the Browns just dropped Jarvis Landry. Just go, just go, get Jarvis Landry, right?
Paul Richardson is sitting at home, and you wouldn't have to deal with any PR fallout, and you might get similar production.
We talked about Braxton Berrios a couple of weeks ago. He signed, I think it was a 2-year, $12 million deal with the Jets again. I think that was the numbers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Braxton Berrios he's a much better. I know it's a different type of guy, but I don't really care. He's a better receiver. He's a better football player than Christian Kirk. So, hey, maybe I'll have to eat some crow and it turns out great for the Jags. I don't know. Looks like the Jags being Jags to me, man, throwing around money. And also, I'm not happy about that because what does that do for like a dude like DK Metcalf, who's actually a very good wide receiver in the NFL?
He should get double that amount now. $40 million for DK.
Yeah, clearly you're his agent, and I hear you. And we will. So again, later this week, we're going to traverse through all the free agency stuff. We're going to bring back Adam live. So we're going to do a trio of us back live again later this week to talk free agency. But you heard the big news. It's all good stuff. So why don't we get back to the future a little bit, Brandon? We didn't get a chance. So a couple of days later, I heard your discussion with Adam about, where is the blame to be laid for Russell Carrington Wilson versus the Pete John divorce? And I really thought like Michael Sean Dugar did an excellent job on their man-to-man podcast when they kind of spent an hour and a half on this topic, the day or two, whatever, after this. And he really kind of laid it out as a divorce. He's like, this was a divorce. Don't get it twisted. And
I don't know very many divorces where you pay somebody to be with you and then you can actually get compensation for pawning off your spouse to another person. I don't know very many marriages like that, but we can go with the marriage thing if you want.
Yeah. Let's go down. Let's go down the game of life divorce here, just for a segment longer. So, but the way I saw it, you guys talked about it. You were kind of laying blame. You're like, maybe it's 60%, maybe it's 65%. I think you were in that zone of like that much blame to Russ's camp. And when I look at this too, man, I think it's like more like 95 to 98% Russell Wilson's fault.
Oh.
Now, and again, if it's like a divorce, to me, it's like, okay, the Pete and John team, they were willing to live. Like, marriage is about like compromise, living with flaws, accepting flaws. And like Pete and John were willing to live with Russ's flaws. And there are legitimate things. You guys talked about that too. Dude does not throw the ball in the middle of the field unless it's 25 yards downfield, right? Like that's it. He does not use the middle of the field. He holds on to the ball a long time. We know these things. He's still a Hall of Famer. He's still the best quarterback we ever had. But they were willing to live with that. I do not think that Russ, given everything we've now seen, I don't think Russ was willing to live with the John and Pete system any longer. Like, and that was it. So like, that's why I'm like, hey, pretty sure stuff came out that they were preparing for 14 different teams in a certain way, like preparing an acceptance for 14 different teams. That's
Russell Wilson's folks were compiling I think they were looking at 14 different teams and ranking them in terms of different types of things that the franchises offered and so forth. And it's a pretty big number to consider. It's
a lot, right? How many teams make the playoffs? What is that now? Is it about 14? Yeah, 14. So, that's a lot. That's a hefty number to work through. And the thing that I kept on landing on was I think it's Russ's fault. Again, I don't fault him for the way he thought or felt. Like you could have that argument, right? But like he thinks that's an antiquated system. He wants to move on. Okay, I get that. But in terms of who forced what, I think Russ forced this and we got the result we got. But I also look at that and say, I applaud Russ on one frame for being so pristine and squeaky clean above the surface. And then on the other side of the coin, I'm like, man, this guy's methodical. I don't mean it in an evil way. I don't mean it in a way that makes me not like Russ or not appreciate his time, but it's like, it's maniacal, methodical, the way that this has been going on for 2 years now, 2 years. And it's
why you have an agent, so you can remain the squeaky clean, and then you have your guy that does your business. And that's how that works.
He does the dirty work. So he's been able to maintain that, which I think is like I said, one side wants to applaud that because that ain't easy, and one side wants to like shake my finger at Russ and go, we should have known. The signs were there. And Brandon, do you remember late this season, after the finger injury, we did a 3-and-3 out recap episode, and there was a particular thing that Russ started to redo where I was like, ooh, this is a red flag for me. I was like, I think this means he's out the door. Do you remember the thing that he was kind of starting to redo?
Well, I know that it wasn't he kind of going toward and not taking accountability so much. I don't know if that's the thing that you're talking about or not, but I do remember some press conferences where he was not showing the same level of accountability maybe that we had in the past.
That might have been a sign also. That wasn't the one that I was running my dog the other day. My dog's name is Bella. She's wonderful. And so we were going for a run. I was actually listening to, I think, you and Adam's last thing, not yesterday's, the one previous. And what was coming up in my brain, I was like, oh man, I was like, we talked about this. The one thing that I was like, holy crap, yellow flag, red flag, was all of a sudden he was running the ball again.
Oh,
all of a sudden. 2 years of him not taking an option read, 2 years of us like, he's got to run the ball. And all of a sudden he's not just scrambling, but like planned runs, keeping it on the option, 5-step drop. It opens up. He goes. That touchdown versus the Cardinals to kind of seal the game last week of the season, things like that. And I remember saying at the time, I was like, this is, I said it on 3-and-3, and I said, this is his agent in his ear saying, dude, you've got to put that back on tape, because then you'll have more of that potpourri back out there. Sure. And I forgot that we discussed that, but it kind of came back to me. I was like, damn, unfortunately, like, I think that was pretty prescient, because where was that? And how do you feel about the stuff around some Seahawks players saying that Russ was kind of checked out, that maybe he was not, fully in this last season?
Yeah, it's interesting that it would, and really, if that were the case, then it is to the point to where he's kind of forcing the organization in one way, because if you're not all in, I mean, Pete has them tap the sign right as they're heading out to the field, the all in sign. So yeah, if you're not all in, then that's the sign that the organization may be ready to move on. So I suppose the signs were there. I guess I don't look at him running so much as a sign for him moving on. But I do remember you saying that you would expect that the agent to put that out, because really, to that point, I mean, he had one of his lowest rushing total years in his career this past year.
Yeah, and it had been a whole season previous to that. Even though he had a lot, more yards the year before, he would never keep it on the option. We would kill him all the time. It's like, wait a second, you're back in shotgun, and the D linemen are 1,000% just crashing down on the running back. They are not biting whatsoever, because there was nothing on film for a long period of time to make them bite, to say that you were possibly going to keep the ball. So that was telltale, and it was interesting. And like we talked about, though, it is pretty quick how the page can turn, right? So it's like, yes, we're going to miss Russ, and yes, it's going to stink when we see him out there throwing touchdowns to the Broncos. Hopefully they win only those 3 games, those NFC West games. And as we kind of start to turn the page, let's get to Bobby next. But when we look at if you had a kind of
just to hammer on that real quick,
you go.
We don't want Russell Wilson winning a bunch of games. We are incentivized for the Broncos to lose now that we have their draft pick. So we absolutely have to root for the Broncos. There's no rooting for Russell Wilson just because we've been fans of Russ for all this time. No, we are team. We want our team to be awesome. And for our team to be more awesome, the Broncos have to do worse here this upcoming year. And then after that, okay, fine. If you want them to win, great. That's perfect. But
2023,
3 wins is what we can accept from the Broncos, as long as it's Rams, Niners, Cardinals.
Exactly. Let them go, whatever, that 3-14. 2023, open it back up, Russ. Go have a good year. We'll meet you in the Super Bowl and we'll beat you. That'll be a lot of fun. I think the the other piece for me too is like, so as he's out the door and as we start to turn the mental page, there's been all this different discussion like, hey, yeah, Watson's a good QB. No way. Don't go anywhere near him. It's third rail type stuff, all the way over to, I don't care. He's a good quarterback, to today stuff saying Watson's not, Watson's rejecting Seattle. But then I just saw something that said that tweet was deleted. So, which is interesting, right? So it came out
I
there
think
that
Diana Rossini said
yes,
the same thing though, and I don't think she deleted hers.
I think she said Seattle doesn't have interest in him. It was kind of like the inverse of it. And that's okay too. So let's just take Watson mentally off the table. Probably a good thing to just say not going to happen. And that's, I think you can make a football argument why it could and should. And then there's a lot of arguments why they shouldn't. And we can leave them aside. But if you had to quickly force rank the rest of the QBs, including, you could glom on just like a draft pick. You don't have to say who. Like, how would you start to rank, given the team and the construct, how would you start to say, I think that could be our QB going into this year? Have any, new thoughts towards that?
Yeah, I'll get to that. I want to recognize Ryan 911 in the chat for the super chat.
Nice.
Thanks for that, Ryan. And yeah, in terms of, gosh, I think for this year, if there's a QB who maybe slides to the start of the second round, I could see some interest there. I really don't see, from what I've looked at so far, I don't really even see somebody that I could put ahead of Locke, which is unfortunate. So I think to me, you use your top picks on dudes in the trenches and you roll with Locke for this year, or if there's another free agent out there this year, you just got to go with that, and then hope there's somebody there that fits what you're looking for next year. I just don't see the quarterback that would necessarily be on the Seahawks radar for this season.
So you're not drafting him, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. I listened to the Seahawkers pod, and I listened to Adam's breakdown, and Adam's usually pretty good. He's usually pretty accurate. I know
Seahawks guys did a nice breakdown
absolutely
on quarterbacks.
They did as well. I thought that, but there was a big gap. Is it Ritter, Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati? Is that right?
Yeah.
So there was a pretty big gap though between, I think, the way the Seahawks Nest guys broke it down and Adam's look at the Cincinnati QB for Ritter. And I'm not a huge college football fan, so it's tough for me to, I'm not getting on a soapbox. I did think the little bit that I watched, which was like, playoff college football stuff. I'm like, all right, well, Ritter's outgunned by Alabama, but I still felt like Ritter was good at like anticipating a throw downfield and like being willing to throw a ball where the dude is just about to get open and maybe will get open, but putting it in some pretty decent places where, remember one touchdown down the right-hand side against Alabama in that game to kind of keep Cincinnati in it because they kind of hung tough. And I was like, damn, that's a lovely throw. Like straight up, that is a lovely throw. And he was under a lot of duress because Alabama was just a superior football team.
Yeah, and that's the only game that I watched too. And yeah, there were some adequate throws in that game. And if you put on the Drew Lock highlights, you can see throws just like that too. So I'd have to go and watch a little more Ritter to see and fully get my thoughts out on him. But yes, watching that one game, I saw throws that were at least better throws than what I saw from some of the Malik Willis highlights, which as far as an athletic quarterback went, like that's the dude. His athleticism off the charts. But as far as a quarterback who you want to throw the ball frequently, I didn't see enough from him in the highlights of his that I watched.
Yeah, I get the freak athlete part, and that's cool. And then I look back at the batch of people that are currently available too, and it's like, all right, well, do we just kind of muddle through Drew Lock? I think you kind of know what you get with that guy. Could you win 6 games, 7 games, 8 games? Maybe you can. And, as it was pointed out there by Ryan in with the super chat. Yeah, we got Diggs back. And that was a really interesting domino. Just like that was like a cult. That was like I know we'll talk about it later in the week, but I think we were all kind of very, very worried. I know I was, that it's like, holy crap, our culture play has just evaporated with the Bobby news, the way it seemed like Bobby got treated. Russ is out the door. And yet it's like, wait a second, maybe there's something really solid there still when Sidney Jones, Al Woods, and Diggs all in the same day go, nope, we see something here with the hurt off defense and the opportunities that maybe are there. Thought that was pretty interesting for sure. And then like
and if
spinning.
you listen to Diggs, if you check out the Ben Baller Behind the Baller podcast, Diggs was on with him a few weeks back, and just listening to him talk about Pete Carroll, it does seem like he genuinely likes playing for Pete. So that could have a big part of it too. But I know once I saw some of those pieces move, I thought Diggs wasn't going to be resigning.
Yeah, me neither. I think we even said like, oh, well, Diggs is gone, right? Like, we know Bobby will be gone and Diggs will be gone, and Dwayne, like, why would he come back? And now it's like, wait a second, maybe there's just more folks, let's put it this way, on the side of Pete and John that we're just not aware of. Because again, as an organization, they do an exceptional job of keeping a pretty clean surface level. That's not just Russ, that's organization wide. Not that much stuff gets out compared to other organizations that are a flaming disaster every single offseason. There's plenty that everything's on the table and people are tweeting stupid stuff all the time. Doesn't really happen with Seattle. So that's again a testament to what's been built. And then circling it back to the QBs, seeing some chats there. I still have this kind of hope or like piece of me that thinks Marcus Mariota is an okay quarterback. And I will say it this way too. The type of system that I think Pete wants to run the ball well, use your tight ends, use the middle of the field, and now with Waldron, use some misdirection, do stuff over the middle of the field. I don't know why Mariota can't really be a more mobile Jimmy G at this stage of his career. And that's, if you say more mobile Jimmy G is very middle of the pack. And we know anti-clutch. We know that. Like he will throw the pick almost every single game. But if you took that and added in some more mobility that Mariota does have, I still think he could achieve that kind of level. I'm not sure where how you land on like the dudes like Mariota or Minshew and the others that are out there.
Yeah, I think the trade-off with Mariota over Jimmy is that Mariota seems to get injured more often, which that's not great when you talk about how often Jimmy's injured. So
that's true.
There's no free agent quarterback I can get excited about. Gardner, okay, yeah, you might. He's more fun than Drew Lock. Like I would like that more, just because I like him as a personality more than Drew, and probably wins about as many games. So yeah, I think I know I got really excited when the @SportsBread account tweeted out that Minshew was coming to Seattle for Noah Fant.
It was Noah and a fifth. And I was like, all right. I was like, we just re-signed Disley. I was like, I'll row with Gardner Minshew. Yeah.
And then I looked at the name and saw it was @SportsBread, and I knew, okay, this is not legit.
Yeah. And maybe putting it out into the universe to see if someone will pick it up, and maybe it becomes real. I think Minshew would be fun. And a couple of years ago, he was pretty good on the Jaguars. That was I think that was his rookie campaign. Those were not bad, or second year. Those were not bad numbers. They were pretty good
numbers. He's put up better numbers than Locke. So
yeah, exactly. And I know that Adam brought up Fitzmagic saying, hey, if it's a 1-year deal, why not? The only thing with Fitzmagic is I kind of feel like it's a little bit of the anti what Pete Carroll actually wants to do. It's Fitzpatrick is the Brett Favre with 75% of the talent that Brett Favre ever had. And he's a good NFL quarterback, but just not the talent that Brett Favre was. So that's interesting, but also talking about the fun factor. Yeah, man, a year with Fitzmagic, that I could dance with Fitzmagic for a year. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we're looking at for this next year. It's going to be fun now. Now the game down in Tampa would have been a lot more fun with Russ going up against Tom. But instead we're going to have Tom versus whoever we got.
Question mark. We'll find out. We'll see how that all shakes. And I do wonder, we don't know yet if that might be an international game. Is that right? Because that's not laid out yet, right?
Oh, yeah, I think we still have to wait to find out, what's going on with that.
That's still TBD. I hope they don't take that one away because that's a game I plan on traveling to. So
Right.
hopefully that all
But
shakes.
what, like, you can't travel to Germany instead of,
Night. That is the extent of my German, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. I know Christopher Rolfe is going to be very impressed at BSO24 out there on the Twitter sphere with my spot on German. All right, well then I do want to keep it to about a half hour today, so let's rotate over to. We didn't talk Bobby, and again next week or later this week we're going to get back to the free agents, and we'll talk more about these dominoes coming in and the excitement of hey, bringing the band back together. And hopefully by then, maybe DJ Reed's come back too. But we didn't get to talk about kind of the Bobby scenario last time too. And where did you land on the hurt factor? Was it more hurtful for you for the Russ news or the Bobby news? I forget how you answered that part.
I hurt more from the Bobby news. And I think it was just because I think of everything that's happened with Russ over the last year. Bobby's never said anything about being unhappy or even hinted at it or ever said, 4 teams that he'd rather get traded to if he were to be traded. So I think that was part of it. And also, I think in terms of what Bobby has meant to the franchise, both of them have been the best at their position in franchise history. But in addition to that, Bobby's been, a lot like Walter Jones, a lot like Steve Largent when he retired, among the top at their position in the entire NFL. And Russ hasn't made it to that point quite yet, but Bobby has. Shoot, Bobby has an MVP vote, and Russ doesn't. So
0, right? 1-0.
1-0.
Yeah.
So all that playing into it together, I think Bobby leaving hurt a little bit more to me, although that one I could probably project out a little bit more, just considering, he was coming toward the end of his deal. He had made all of his money in terms of his guaranteed contract. This 1 year left on his deal, it wasn't guaranteed. So it was, and even when he signed, I think a lot of us looked at that and said, yeah, he's probably not going to see that final year. But in terms of, it just feels like Bobby still has a couple more good years left in him.
Yeah, and I think that's, so to answer for me, because I thought about it when you guys were talking about it, Russ was way more of a gut punch for me. I guess because in the back of my brain, I was already under the impression that they were cutting Bobby. I think that was the plan kind of all along. In my brain, I already kind of processed it's probably the last time we're seeing Bobby. That number for his position on the field and what we need, like offensive tackles, things like that. And at that point, Diggs is out there. We need a safety. I was like, oh man, like I didn't see it happening. So I think I already processed that he'd be gone. So it hurt a heck of a lot less for me personally. However, the respect given back to Bobby for, man, those years of like, of course he came out like, gangbuster. He was amazing in 2013. We win the whole thing. But really when he kind of became like, the dude, like 2015 to 2019, say something like that, like holy crap, what a joy to watch that guy play the game the way he played it. And like you said, Brandon, again, the even keeledness of like nothing ever out, even when the LOB is blowing up, Bobby is that consistent piece, even when Russ's camp, right? I saw that today on Twitter. Like I speaking of things I won't care about it. I don't want to see anymore. Like this whole Russ's camp says, right? When Russ's camp,
you know what? There's no other player on the team to where it is his camp that we're constantly hearing from. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, last time we had that was George Fantz, but that's a different story. That guy, he deserved his own camp. That man, I mean, he's a triple threat, right? So, so the Bobby news kind of processed differently for me. But the other piece for me too, where the delta was like, we saw what life was like without Russ with Gino, and then we got a pretty good indication of what life was like without Bobby, and that was part of the hurt factor for me when I put those two up together. Man, I mean, I remember coming back on during the season being like, hey, Cody Barton is faster, like period, right now in his career. Not saying better. He's not on the level of Bobby. I mean, Bobby's going to be wearing a gold jacket. right now, the combination of Brooks and Barton end of the year when Bobby was hurt,
Yeah.
I think our defense was better. So like that also took away the hurt. I was like, I think we're better without him right now. I think playing a younger dude who simply can go sideline to sideline and cover better. That was the big thing, man. Bobby's coverage ability really suffered. Now that might be Ken Norton's scheme. Put
I feel like
Bobby.
it was more scheme than it was Bobby.
Totally could be. But in the same scheme, Barton covered better. I think it's because he's a younger dude who could move faster at this point in his life. You know, just that's what came up for me. I don't know if you buy that at all, if you're like, dude, you're smoking crack to say Barton was a little
I think the delta obviously between Bobby and Cody is a lot smaller than the delta in between Russ and Gino. And I don't know if there is a delta, Ryan, between Locke and Gino. It comes down to the final moments of the game.
Right.
And we know, Gino was a lot like Tavares Jackson, to where he couldn't win the game at the end either. So, and I don't know if Locke is really all that much more clutch toward the end of the game either. So my guess is not.
Yeah, doesn't seem to be, right? So I think it's going to be interesting. But I think the other piece of it, though, is at least maybe somewhere we could land it for today is because, hey, great free agent day for Seattle. And we could talk about, hey, some of these contracts were a little beefy, and I'm not talking about Phil Haynes.
Yeah, I do. I want to. The one that I'm really interested in digging into is the Will Dissly one. I know someone mentioned it in the chat that it was high, and they don't know what John Schneider's doing. That's the one I want to get some more details on and really dig into, because it seems like we were bidding with Jacksonville.
Running it up, right? Because you look back at last year, and I realized, hey, inflation's a real thing. That's not just hitting your grocery store. Like the NFL has inflated a lot too, because the revenue money the projections are gigantic. Therefore, you're seeing these larger contracts. Of course, it happens every year, but the jump from like Gerald Everett at like, what was he, $6 million last year to now for 1 year, which usually you have to overpay for a year because, the player has less guarantees, to a 3-year, $24 million for Dissly. Now I would like to see, is that just straight $8 million APY, 8 against the cap? Is there cap John Schneider magic in there where, hey, it's not that bad of a hit these next 2 years while we rebuild?
Yeah, I think it was a $4 million hit for next year. And so it was a reasonable kind of contract for next year. The injury guaranteed money was like 6. Yeah, it was. I think the first 2 years are probably going to look fine, and then the third year is probably, we're going to look at that and say, well, he probably doesn't see that third year unless he balls out, and then maybe it's fine.
Then we're rewarded for it. Yeah, that can make sense. And yes, Garen's chiming in. Yes, I am in a cave. I'm in actually, it's not a cave. I wish it was a man cave. It's not. It's my home office. It's my kid's romper room. It's my wife's workout studio.
You have the light off and then the light on your face. And
that's it. It looks cave at. Like I'm emerging from an nondescript location. But it's going to be, but to kind of land the plane for today, Brandon, great free agent day. We brought back a lot of that core DB. That's huge. Our defensive tackles, the whole line's looking good with the addition of Shelby from the trade, bringing old firearms back. That's looking pretty darn solid. Obviously more places to go address, and we'll get to those as hopefully soon. But I was very encouraged to kind of leave it. I have it on screen as Clinton Bond is hopeful. The biggest domino was seeing Diggs come back with such oomph. It just kind of lifted a weight, I think, for the entire organization.
Don't lie to me. It was thigh arms. Arms coming back is what did it for you. And that is why you're saying that Monday was a success for the team.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.